Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jace and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about why a boring life makes us happier in the long term. So in this video, I have 5 reasons why a boring life would make us happier. So let's start with reason number 1, which is the midpoint theory. So the midpoint theory just says that we live 90% or 95% of our time in the midpoint, in which this is the midpoint, and we stay the majority of our time in that. In the midpoint, we don't feel happy, we don't feel sad, we feel neutral. So this is your midpoint. You get happy, it goes up, and it goes back down to the midpoint. You get sad, it goes down, then it goes back up to the midpoint. We spend 90% of our time in the midpoint. So if you really want to be happy, you need to be satisfied with the midpoint. And if you think about it, you don't feel happy, you don't feel sad, that's just the midpoint. It's neutral. You don't feel anything. And the thing about life is, if you want to be really happy, you need to be satisfied at that midpoint. If you really want to be happier, you need to get used to being bored. I know it sounds weird, but the more you get used to being bored, the more you're going to enjoy the highs of your life, and the more you're going to be generally happier, because you spend 90% of your time in the midpoint. Reason number 2 on why a boring life leads to a happier life is that it helps us chase the right things. And what I mean by that is, a boring life helps us chase not empty happiness, but a happiness with meaning. And what I mean by happiness with meaning is, it's your happiness with passion. It's happiness with satisfaction. And for me to explain better, I will introduce you to the paradox of happiness. So the paradox of happiness simply states that the more you chase happiness, the less you're going to be happy. And that is the same with money. That's why you're going to see millionaires and billionaires chasing a lot of money, chasing more and more money. But if you ask them, it seems that they feel that they don't really have enough money. And that's a paradox. And that's the same with happiness. The more you chase happiness, the less you're going to be happy. And what I mean by this is that a lot of people are chasing the wrong happiness. They are chasing empty happiness. If we go back again to the midpoint theory, they are chasing the highs, the highs, the highs. But the thing is, the midpoint is the most important, because you spend the majority of your time in there. No matter what you do, you're going to come back to that midpoint. So how do we chase satisfaction? Because I said, we should not pursue empty happiness. Instead, we should pursue happiness with satisfaction, happiness with passion. That leads us to reason number 3, which is, harder things are easier to do when you are bored. And I am a perfect example for that. A few years ago, I really hate reading. I hate reading books, no matter what book that is. What I did is I bore myself. What happened is that I became extremely bored. And because of boredom, I started to read books. And that's right, I really hate reading, but I started reading books because I'm bored. And that's the thing about being bored. You start doing things that are really hard to do, such as exercising, studying a course, reading books. Those things won't really make you happy in the short term. But in the long run, where you've learned a lot of things, you have a better physique, you're more healthy, you'll be happier that time compared to when you feel so down. That's why I said a boring life would make us happier in the long term. Because right now it might be really boring, but forcing yourself to be better, forcing yourself to improve a lot in the long run would really help. For example, because I've read a lot of books, I've studied courses about blogging, I studied courses about making YouTube videos. My videos aren't perfect, my blog posts aren't perfect, but because I kept learning, I am improving. When I see my improvements, I became just happier. Imagine just seeing your hard work pay off. The satisfaction you get from there is not something empty. The happiness you get just from seeing the results of your hard work is just better. It's just better. That's the only word that I can think of. Which leads me to reason number 4 which is that routine brings success. I made a video a few weeks back where I computed the average time a billionaire wakes up. And what I also found in that video is that the majority of those billionaires have a routine. And the thing is, routines are what we do that's really boring. That's just the midpoint, right? It's your routine. There's nothing happening in there. But because they stick to their routine, they became successful. And those routines are boring. And what's more is that Bruce Lee said that he does not fear a man who practiced 10,000 kicks once, but he fears a man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. And what he is talking about is mastery. Imagine a master guitarist, a master pianist who spends thousands of hours just honing their craft. And to think that they're doing that consistently, for us, that might look very boring. And yeah, it's really boring to just focus on one thing for a long time. For example, you're going to see me every day for 2 to 3 hours just making blog posts, just researching things for my blog. That's really boring. But those routines over time can bring you success. And in the end, these routines would make us happier. Lastly is reason number 5, which is that boredom brings clarity. And for me to explain that, if you've tried meditation, a guru will say that when you meditate, focus on your breath, then let your thoughts flow. And what do they mean by letting your thoughts flow? It is because when you are bored, your brain starts to think of a lot of things. And because it starts to think a lot of things, you're going to find out a lot of things about yourself. And I believe that we are all different. What makes you happy won't really make me happy. What makes me happy might not make you happy. We have different things that makes us happy. And for you to find out what really makes you happy, you need to find that within you. And you find that by gaining clarity. And usually, you gain clarity by being bored for a while, because those are the times where your brain is forced to think deeper things. I really have a lot more things to say in this video, especially in the paradox of happiness and the midpoint theory. So I invite you to watch this video where I talk more about the paradox of choice and the midpoint theory. I believe it's going to help you understand more about this topic and why even if your life seems really boring, you should thank yourself for owning that moment. A boring life can make you happier. I'll see you in this video. Jace out.